Hello everyone, my name is Amanda Ostrander. I am a teacher-turned-homeschool mom. This is Raising A to Z. It is a YouTube channel all about homeschooling, and today I'm going to talk about how I homeschool my two kids at the same time. So, how do I homeschool two kids at the same time? Basically, I break it down into two sections, essentially. There's the things that we do together as a family, and we're all doing the same topic and the same lessons and the same things together. And then there are the things that they do separately and are specific to their grade level. So basically it's like two sections, and how I handle both those sections is different. So let's start with, how do I handle teaching them together when we're doing the same units and the same things together? So we do all subjects except for math and language together. So because we're very much so a unit studies family, we do our unit studies together, which covers our social studies, history, geography, science. Sometimes I pull some literature in there too. All of our read alouds, that's all covered in our unit study. We do that together as a family. We're all learning the same thing, we're all reading the same books, and that's just what we do. So basically, when I sit down, we start our homeschooling block in the morning. We start with our morning basket. This has been something that we introduced this year, and it has been such a game changer for us in terms of our togetherness time. If you want a whole video on that, I'll put the link over here. Basically, our morning basket has become a basket that is themed to our unit study, and it has all of our read alouds, it has all the things that work with our unit study, and we start with that. So we start with doing our readings for the day and a couple little activities to kind of get us in the mindset of learning and getting ready to learn. And once our morning basket is done, because we do this right after they're done breakfast, they haven't even left the breakfast table yet. As soon as that's done, we take a quick little break to go do something different, and the kids go off and get ready for the day. So brush their teeth, brush their hair, get dressed. That's what we do. And then we meet in our activity room, or what some people would call our homeschool room. We call it an activity room. And we get right back into our unit study, whatever is our seated part of our unit study for the day. I used to do unit studies at the end because I know a lot of people are like, oh, you gotta do language and math first. And we used to do that. But I found that by doing it first and doing our together things first, it worked so much better for our family, because Zoe, who's younger, typically finishes quicker because she has less work to do, and so she'd go off to play, and then to bring her back to do more seat work or more reading or whatever, it was a little bit more difficult. There was a little bit more fighting, and then if she was playing, sometimes she was getting just too loud and it was starting to distract Alexi. This way, we have done all of our together activities before we move into our individual subjects, and it has worked so much better. I can't even tell you how much better it's worked. What happens during these together seated unit study activity times? I'm going to use one of our units that we did already as an example, because it was a great example of what our unit study together time looks like. So I got this great unit study off of Teachers Pay Teachers on nocturnal animals. That was something Zoe and Alexi both really wanted to learn about, was animals that come out at night. And so we were doing this unit study, and basically what I was doing was differentiating instruction. If you remember back to your public school days, if you were ever in a split grade, you probably remember that oftentimes the teacher gave you guys one activity as a class, and you just had two different rubrics or two different expectations, right? So if you were in a grade 3-4 split, the grade 4s were expected to write a little bit more than the grade 3s on a writing assignment. Basically, that's what I'm doing, the same thing with my kids. I'm differentiating the expectations I have for them and just expecting more from Alexi and less from Zoe. So, for example, this unit study came with, every day we had a different animal that we would read about and learn about. It had a couple questions at the bottom, and then it had a labeling page where we could label the different body parts on the animal. So basically, I expected Alexi to read the biography on the animal, essentially. She would read that section. Some days she didn't read it all because she was tired, but that's okay. There were also big sections, and I would assist her when necessary. So she did a lot of the reading aloud there. That was her reading aloud time. And Zoe, I expected her to listen. So when it came time to answer the questions, I did expect Alexi to write the answers because a lot of it was looking into the text. And Zoe, I let her answer the questions orally and I would scribe for her. We're doing the same activity. We're answering the same questions, just different levels and different expectations for them. And it worked really, really well. And then when we came to the labeling page where we would label the body parts on the animal, Alexi could copy the words into the right boxes. She was quite capable of that. And Zoe, I would read the word and say what boxes it go into. She would point to the box. And then when we started, I would use a highlighter or like a light colored marker, so like a really light pink or yellow, and I would write the word into the box for her, and then she would take a pencil and trace over the letters. That's how we started at the beginning of the month. And by the end of the month, she was actually asking to write the words that she recognized. So for example, pretty much every animal has eyes in the book, right? They had eyes. So she learned to recognize the word eyes. And so she wanted to write those words without assistance. And then if it was something much longer or a word she didn't recognize, then I would assist with that. Or she even started to just copy from the word bank if I would show her what word it was. That's how we kind of like handled that. And then I think some people often forget that you don't have to do every worksheet as a worksheet. So this book also had a lot of Venn diagrams making comparisons. And so I would do those as like a discussion. So we would compare the animals and I would write them into the book for the kids, basically this equivalent of what a teacher would do with like a chart paper or like on the chalkboard kind of thing. But we were just doing it in our workbook and we were discussing it and the kids were giving me different answers at the same time and I was writing them in. So that's kind of how I handle like our seated unit study time activity. We're doing the same work. I'm just expecting different things from them level wise. I'm expecting Alexi to start writing and using sentences, and I'm expecting Zoe to just give me the answer that she can come up with, and I'm going to write it down for her. And when it comes to scribing, I'm always writing exactly what she says. So if she says a sentence that's not grammatically correct, that's what's going in. That's basically how I handle watching for progress. Is I can see exactly what she wrote because how she said, and then looking for that kind of progress that way as well. That's how we handle our together time. It works for us, and I'm finding that we're actually getting through a lot of unit study material this year, more so than we have any other year, which is great. After our unit study activities are done, we put our unit study books away, and then we pull out our individual subjects. So both my kids do math individually, grade level appropriate. And then Zoe has a book that she's doing, Introduction to Phonics and Letters, and Alexi is doing, she's doing a grammar, and she alternates between a phonics and a spelling. So she basically does one book full phonics and then she switches over to the other one. So they're basically doing their language and their math independently. I typically start with Zoe and work with her because Alexi can read. And she can actually do most of her language activities by herself. So she's able to read them and she's able to do most of them with very little assistance and only the occasional question. So I will work mostly with Zoe, working on her letter sounds, letter identification, that kind of stuff, because someone needs to read her the questions. Even in math, like she's really good at math. She's very much able to do the math activities, but she needs someone to read the instructions to her of like what the activity is. So I will work mostly with Zoe and just kind of like bop over to Alexi if she needs help. And I'm sitting at the table with them. So like I just have one on each side. It works well for us that way. And then because Zoe has a simpler math because she's in kindergarten and less because she's in kindergarten, she's typically done within about 10 to 15 minutes. And then she's like off. And the nice thing is she can actually like leave the room, and then I can go over and work with Alexi on anything that she didn't understand in her language, and then we can move into math. And because Alexi is working almost like a full grade ahead in math, it does help us in that sense that we can kind of focus on skills that are maybe a little bit more difficult. That's what we do. And then basically when she's done her math, we're done our seat work for the day. And that's just how we're finding homeschooling the easiest for us, starting with our together work, moving into our separate work, and then when you're done, you're done. I think it has to be really complicated and you have to have these like really long one-on-one times with each child. And I don't think that's necessarily the case, because if you think about it, if you're in public school, you didn't have tons of one-on-one time with your teacher, and you probably still learn to read and write and do a lot of your math. Your kids don't need an hour each individually of one-on-one time. Some kids do, and they might need to, and that's fine. But I'm saying, like, for our family, they don't need that like long amount of time, because I am aiming for short blocks. Like, I'm not doing 2 hours worth of sit-down lessons. We're aiming for like an hour, hour and a half, including our morning basket time tops. And so we're finding this is working. And in terms of like other activities, when it comes to like extracurriculars and stuff, I'm always looking for things that I can have them at the same place at the same time, because that's just easier. And so far we've lucked out that that has been the case. The science program at our local science center, they can do that at the same time. They just separate them by levels, which does mean I do a lot of walking back and forth between the levels sometimes, but if I don't have a friend there, but oftentimes I'll pair up with a friend and we'll take each other's kids. Our homeschool gymnastics basically has like a low level and a high level, so they can go at the same time. They're doing Girl Guides at the same time, Brownies and Sparks, soccer's at the same time. So we do look for activities where they can be at the same place at the same time. And that is just helpful for me, so I don't have to run all around all the time. But it just works out really well for our family too. I'm a big fan of like one of the reasons why we homeschooled was to do things together. And as much as we can do those things together, we're going to do them together as a family. And so by doing more together, it means I'm covering more with both of them, and then I can give them the little bits of time that they need on their specific things later on. And that's what works for us. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment below. I'm happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next week, and make sure you follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok so you can see exactly how this all works on a regular basis. Thank you, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.